Hi, Anjalee. Thanks for joining us today. I thought I'd kickstart the discussion by asking you what inspired you to put your hat in the ring for the upcoming local council elections.
Thanks, Srishti. I'm really pleased to be here and to have an opportunity to chat to you. So thank you for having me. I wanted to start by acknowledging that I'm speaking from the lands of the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nations, and that is land that's been ceded, and I pay respects to elders past and present. So I'm running for Monash Council in Mount Waverley Ward to join Josh Fergus as the second Greens councillor on Monash Council. I'm running because I strongly believe that council needs to represent all members of our community, and because I strongly believe that that isn't happening at the moment. So Monash is a really diverse council. It has about 200,000 people living in it, in the centre of a growing diverse population in Victoria. Apart from the city of Melbourne, more people travel into Monash every day to work and to study than any other municipality in Victoria. Over 52% of our population is female, and yet only 2 out of 11 current councillors on council are female. And similarly, about 45% of our population is either from overseas or from a non-English speaking background, and yet only 1 out of 11 current councillors is a person of colour. So that's something that I strongly feel needs to change. I've watched council closely over the last 3 years or so, and over again, I've seen council making decisions often led by older white men who've some of whom have been on council for over 20 years, ignoring the needs of women and minorities. As I said, that needs to change, and I'd really like to be part of that change.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know you touched on that diversity element, so that sort of eases it into the next question. So, young people are multifaceted and each have diverse experiences, whether that be due to race, gender, class, or disability. However, in public office, like you said, whether that be local, state, or federal, that's not always representative when there's a very specific kind of person that gets into office. How has your multifaceted sort of experience shaped where you are today?
Great question, and I think it's really fantastic as well that there's more and more discourse from wonderful young people like you that recognises that there's a lack of diversity at all levels of our government as well. So I think that's the starting point to changing that. In terms of my particular experiences, there are a couple of things that have really deeply affected me, I think, in terms of the way I see the world and the way I go about my work and my life. The first is that my parents brought me here as a family when I was about 4 years old in 1991. Now, they're the most selfless and the strongest and most hardworking people I know. They left behind so much and so many of the people they love in Sri Lanka to bring us here and give us a better life. And in doing that, over the last 30 years, they have contributed immensely to their local communities and to this country as a whole. They're both professionals, they're both very engaged in their local communities, and now they can say that they've raised a couple of daughters who are also contributing and giving back to this community. More often than not, though, and way too often, I think the narrative in our country around immigration is unfortunately one that suggests that people coming from elsewhere are a burden to us, that they're a threat to us, and that they're something that we should fear and be wary of, rather than them being people who really add to the diversity, the richness of our culture in this country. And so that's one thing I think that has really impacted on me in terms of how I approach my politics, my work, my life. I'm really conscious that we need better representation for those people who've come from elsewhere and who are contributing to this nation. And all of us are immigrants, apart from our First Nations people who are always here. And so that narrative needs to change, and instead we need to really celebrate and embrace the diversity that we have in all of the people that make us who we are. The second thing I think that's really impacted on me, and this will be, I'm sure, no mystery to you either, but navigating the world as a woman has an impact on you. And it's really easy to see, I think, as a woman, where gaps are and where things could be improved, and how difficult it is sometimes to navigate the world as a woman or as a girl. In addition, as part of my legal work, I've done hours of pro bono work representing vulnerable women, and I've also recently completed a PhD in anti-discrimination law, which with a focus on discrimination directed at women and girls. So my work informs the way I look at those issues of gender and discrimination and disadvantage as well. And one of the things, again, that really informs me and how I go about things is the want to do better for women, and the want to see a place where women are treated better, are given more opportunities, and are truly seen as equal. We get a lot of things right in this country, but from the vilification of women with words to violence regularly directed at women and girls on the basis of their being women, and through the exclusion of women and girls from our political processes and our public life, there are really, really fundamental things that need to change even here, and obviously certainly globally. And, you know, that's something that I'm extremely committed to doing throughout my life. It's an issue that's really close to my heart.
Yeah, absolutely. And seeing representation is really important, not just for young people, but for broader society, being able to actually see yourself within those political spaces that you may not have access to. I also migrated here when I was 4 years old with my parents, and I remember, really being engaged in politics in terms of ideas, but whenever I saw representation, even when women started to come in, I still didn't feel like I connected with the political sort of space, because I wasn't able to really picture myself as someone with a diverse background as well, whilst being a woman, being in these spaces. So fantastic that you're able, you running makes a huge difference for other women, or even other people from migrant backgrounds that may wish to do so. So thank you so much for sort of that conversation as a candidate. I thought
Thank you. I should say as well, I completely agree with you. And I think these conversations are really important in terms of shedding a light on that. And you got it absolutely correct. You can't be something that you can't see. And I think that kind of representation, whether it be visually or otherwise, is just incredibly important for younger people in particular, as you mentioned, to know that they can be this other thing, and to know that they can do it well. And I think, you've hit the nail on the head, and these kinds of conversations are really important to beginning that change.
Yeah, absolutely. So something that's obviously really difficult at the moment is the way we run campaigns in COVID times. And as someone like yourself who's also engaged in activism and now running as a candidate in politics, what do you think is your biggest takeaway when running a progressive campaign during these sort of times?
Sure. I mean, some of what I'm going to say will apply generally to running progressive campaigns. And I think, sometimes running a progressive campaign can be more problematic just in a general sense, because we're the ones who are pushing for something different, we're not kind of sticking with the status quo, and that always has implications that come with it. But absolutely, there are new challenges in this period. As a young person, I think I've been at a slight advantage during this time, because I think I understand the importance of digital media and social media in terms of reaching out to younger voters and younger constituents. And that's something I've been really able to draw on during this time. I can't go out and meet people and say hello and explain what I'm about in person. But what I have been doing is utilising digital tools and social media to make sure that I do that in a virtual way. So lots of videos, lots of posts. People really want to know who you are, both as a person and as a candidate, and they really appreciate transparency in terms of what you're standing for. And that's something that I think I've been able to do quite well, notwithstanding the lockdown, because I've been able to do that through digital and social media, and it's something I've really enjoyed doing, actually. It's fantastic being able to speak to people through those media, and yes, it's not exactly the same as kind of being in front of someone and getting immediate feedback, but I still have been getting feedback from the community through those means, and it's been really lovely to see. It's really uplifting to get likes and comments and, you know, hope you do wells and keep going, we're nearly there, and things like that. And it's been a really uplifting part of the campaign and something I've really enjoyed doing. Apart from that, I think what I'd say, I've been making, you know, quite a few calls to community members as well, trying to reach as many people as possible. And people are lonely during this time. They're really struggling. It's been since March now in Victoria that we've been in some form of lockdown or another. You know, and people are finding it difficult. People are finding that they're isolated, and they're finding that their particular needs during this time aren't necessarily being met through policy at various levels of government. And so talking to people, I know that sounds really trite, but actually just being there and listening and saying, no, I've got 10 or 15 minutes for this conversation, actually. I don't need to rush off. I'm not just here to tell you that I'm running and to vote for me. I'm here to actually have a chat with you about how you're doing, how I can help if I'm elected, and what you need from me. And some people, you know, and that 10 or 15 minute conversation isn't an exaggeration. I've talked to lots of people for that amount of time who I think just needed someone to chat to and listen to what's going on with them during this period. And I don't know if that's strictly a campaign technique, but it's something I really enjoy doing, knowing what's going on with people and getting to know people in the community. And I think that's something that people have really responded well to and appreciated. And so, as trite as it sounds, I think at the end of the day, a successful political campaign, particularly a progressive political campaign, comes down to letting people know who you are through whatever means possible at that period of time, and also just listening to who they are and what's going on for them.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for your time, Anjalee. It's been such a pleasure to get to know who you are and all the wonderful stuff you're doing. And good luck with your campaign. It seems like you're a fantastic candidate, and your local government area would be very lucky to have you.
Thank you so much, Srishti, and I should really congratulate you on this initiative as well. I think it's really fantastic and so useful in terms of you know, progressing those issues that we've been talking about. I think it's something that you should be really proud of, and it's been an absolute privilege to be a part of it.
Thank you, Anjalee.